In this video, we're going to have a look at multiplying and dividing algebraic fractions. I'm going to start looking at multiplication. Before we look at multiplying algebraic fractions, we'll just look at normal fractions first and build that up. So we've got 3/5 multiplied by 25/9. You've got two strategies for when you do this. I'm going to do them both. The first strategy to the left. The first strategy is you can multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then simplify if possible. So 5 goes into that 9 times, and 5 goes into that 15 times. And I can simplify that a bit further because 3 goes into that 3 times and 3 goes into that 5 times. So my answer is 5/3. Or we could use the shortcut. The shortcut, what we can do is we can look at the diagonals. So I've got a diagonal here of 3 and 9. And I think, okay, is there a common factor here? Yeah, 3 goes into both. So I can divide them both by 3. It's going to be 1 and 3. And if I have a look at my other diagonal, 5 and 25, is there a common factor? Yeah, 5. 5 goes into both. So I can divide that by 5 and that by 5. And then hopefully you can see that if I just read this off, I'm going to get 5/3. Do you notice how I got 5/3 much quicker than how I got 5/3 here? So this is a strategy we're going to use when we're multiplying algebraic fractions. We're going to have a look at the diagonals. Okay, I think I've got two examples here. So 6ab squared over 5 multiplied by 15 over ab. Let's have a look at our diagonals here. Okay, so the 6 cannot simplify with anything, but the a will be able to simplify with the a. And this b will simplify with one of the b's from the b squared, because b squared is b times b. And I've got a b here, so this would simplify with one of them. So this would simplify to 1, and the b squared would just become b to the power 1. Okay, so I've dealt with that diagonal. If we have a look at the other diagonal, 5 and 15, well, 5 goes into both of those. 5 goes into that once and into that 3 times. So just read off what we've got. We've got 6 times 1 times b, that's 6b times 3. That's 18b. Then I've got 1 times 1 times 1. So I've got 18b over 1, which is 18b. Let's have a look at our next example. 21cd over 8 times 2a over 7d cubed. Let's have a look at our diagonals. Let's have a look. 2a and 8. Well, I can simplify the 2 and the 8. 2 goes into that once and into that 4 times. I can't simplify the a with anything. Let's have a look at our other diagonal. 21cd and 7d cubed. Well, if I have a look at the numbers, the 7 and 21, they can simplify. 7 goes into that once and into that 3 times. If I have a look, d and d cubed, I'm just going to write this out. I've got d and I've got d times d times d. So the d would simplify with one of the d's from the d cubed. So I would have d squared left over. So I can simplify this d with one of the d's, which would leave me d squared. From there, we can just read off what we've got. We've got 3c times 1, so that's 3c times 1, which is 3c. Then I've got 4 times 1 times d squared. That's 4d squared. Okay, so you just need to be kind of on the lookout there. You need to be quite careful. So that was multiplication. We're just going to have a look at division. Just got one example here. Before we do that, we just need to do a reminder on division. When we divide a fraction by another fraction, what we do is we flip the second fraction and divide becomes multiplication. So we flip the second fraction, divide becomes times. We can have a look at our diagonals. So 5 and 15, they are both factor, or have 5 as a factor. So we can divide both by 5. If we have a look at the other diagonal, 12 and 24, 12 goes into both of those. That's going to be 1 and 2. I've got 1 times 2, 1 times 3. Okay, so our step here is we flip the second fraction, divide becomes times, and then we multiply as normal. Okay, so for this final example, 2a squared b over 3 divided by 5a over 3. Well, we're dividing, so we flip the second fraction and divide becomes times. You can see our diagonals now. We can only look at the diagonals when we multiply. 3 goes into this once and 3 goes into this once. The other diagonal, 2 and 5, I can't do anything with. But this a would simplify with one of the a's from a squared. Now we just read off what we've got. 2ab times 1, well, that's 2ab. I've got 1 times 5 times 1. So my final answer is 2ab over 5. Everything essentially boils back down to this multiplication strategy, but when we remember to divide, we need to remember to flip the second fraction and divide will become times. Thank you very much.